It's a crucial weekend in the race to the Big 12 championship game. 4 teams remain, and at least one team will know their fate by the end of Saturday night. Here they are. We've been looking at the standings a lot recently. Always dangerous, but let's just assume that Oklahoma and West Virginia both win on Saturday. Purely hypothetical here. If Iowa State beats Texas, the Sooners are locked into the title game. If Texas beats Iowa State, the Mountaineers are locked into the title game based on results to this point. And assuming Oklahoma and West Virginia win again, the loser of Iowa State-Texas is eliminated from contention for the Big 12 championship game. So let's start with Texas and Iowa State. The Longhorn Network chose this game back at the end of July. It's a night game in Austin that will feature 2 quarterbacks that, once you break it down, are really similar. Brock Purdy has played in 6 games this year compared to Sam Ehlinger, who's played in all 10 for the Longhorns, but their numbers are still similar looking. You see the biggest discrepancy in total touchdowns. That could purely be chalked up to Ehlinger playing in 4 more games than Purdy. In fact, in the last 5 games, Sam has 17 touchdowns to Brock's 15. I think the biggest advantage that Texas has is the fact that they're at home and have a more experienced quarterback. Ehlinger hasn't thrown an interception since the Maryland game, and actually both of his interceptions on the year came in that game. As Coach Herman pointed out on the Big 12 Coaches Teleconference this week, Sam is seeing the game really well right now, and his improvement year over year has been apparent.
We've given him a lot of freedom as the season has moved on to check plays, check us into better plays, check us out of bad plays. He's done a really good job. And then I think the biggest factor in that is trust. You know, he trusts his wide receiver core. He trusts his offensive line a lot more. But I think the biggest thing is he trusts himself.
One thing that sticks out to me is the amount that Brock Purdy runs the ball. Similar to Sam Ehlinger, the threat of Purdy running the ball makes it all the more difficult for defenses to game plan. Of course, the biggest storyline for the Cyclones will be the absence of David Montgomery in the first half of this game. But between Purdy and the Cyclones running back contingent, I think the Cyclones will be fine on Saturday. This is another one of those games that's going to determine the larger picture in the Big 12, 7 p.m. on the Longhorn Network. Now let's take a look at the rest of the schedule for Saturday. The Revivalry will continue down in Waco at 11 a.m. on FS1. We'll get to West Virginia, Oklahoma State, and Texas Tech, Kansas State here in just a bit. Oklahoma will host Kansas for senior night at 6:30 p.m. on Fox. The other mega matchup of the day takes place down in Stillwater as number 9 West Virginia comes calling. Will Greer and David Sells V are getting a ton of recent award recognition, but I want to focus on a part of the offense that's allowed WVU to get to this point, that Mountaineer run game. West Virginia has a 3-headed monster in the backfield between Martell Pettaway, Kennedy McCoy, and Letty Brown. Look at these season stats. McCoy leads the way in carries, but it wasn't even until the Texas game where he made a sizable jump in that carries per game category. Touchdowns are the same across the board, and they've all scored in various ways throughout the season. Expect the Mountaineers to continue pounding the rock. The Oklahoma State Cowboys give up 171 yards a game on the ground and bring pressure a lot. OSU leads the conference and is second in the nation in sacks, which is something WVU will certainly try to take advantage of. A win in this game with the help of Texas can get the Mountaineers to Arlington. But Coach Holgorsen knew from the beginning of the year it would take more than winning a couple of games for the Mountaineers to get to this point.
You know, we have good players coming back. We've got a challenging schedule. That's all good. But ball's got to bounce your way. You know, and if you can catch some breaks and maintain some health and continuing to improve from game 1 to game 13, then you got a chance to be successful.
The Cowboys played a heck of a game last Saturday, nearly toppling the Sooners in Norman. One of the bright spots all season for Oklahoma State has been Tylan Wallace, who went for a cool 220 yards and 2 touchdowns on 10 catches against the Sooners. The breakout receiver was one of 4 Big 12 Biletnikoff semifinalists named this week. The list also includes Texas Tech's Antoine Wesley, West Virginia's David Sills V, and Oklahoma's Marquise Brown. And in my opinion, the Cowboys get the award for most creative way to let the masses know that Wallace made the list of semifinalists. Now, I want to go through some of the best running backs in the league real quick. You've got Justice Hill at Oklahoma State. Puka Williams at Kansas has been a lot of fun to watch this year. Of course, Kennedy Brooks coming on late at Oklahoma, and we can't forget about David Montgomery. But there's only one Big 12 running back that's rushed for over 1,000 yards to this point this season. That would be Kansas State's Alex Barnes. The junior went over the 1,000-yard mark this past weekend in a win over Kansas. He's had 5 100-yard rushing games this year, 10 in his career, and he's 7th all-time in K-State history in rushing yards. Like we talked about last week, the Wildcats have to win out to make it to a bowl game, and Alex Barnes is going to be a key part of that if K-State is going to get it done. He leads the league in yards, carries, touchdowns, and yards per game, and will look to lead the Wildcats against a Texas Tech team that's given up 454 yards per game on the season. The Red Raiders hit the road after another close loss at home, this time to in-state rival Texas. Tech is still 1 win away with 2 games to go from making it back into another bowl game, and with the injuries and constant switching around at quarterback this season, I would absolutely call that a win in my book if the Red Raiders can get it done. Plus, the defense has improved this year, and a large majority of the starting 22 is back next year, including a soon-to-be-healthy Alan Bowman. A couple of notes on the other 2 games. Oklahoma will honor 18 players on senior night this Saturday in the final home game of the season as the Sooners look to make it 14 in a row against Kansas. And Baylor will host TCU in the morning. A win for the Bears would make BU bowl eligible for the first time since 2016. Now let's finish things up with top plays from last weekend. Number 3, Steven Sims Jr. just snags this ball on his way to the end zone. He leads the team in receiving. Unfortunately, his team didn't get the win on Saturday, but a great grab nonetheless. Number 2, Deshaunte Jones with the toe tap touchdown to help the Cyclones get the win up in Ames. Freezing cold up there last weekend, but Iowa State got it done. And number 1, L.J. Humphrey, game-winning touchdown catch, falls over his defender and into the end zone, keeping the Texas Longhorns' Big 12 championship game hopes alive and well. That'll do it for this week's episode. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next Friday for another episode of Big 12 Big Football. For the Big 12 Conference, I'm Aaron Pryor.